Hello and welcome to Just Another Month, the brand new Championship monthly show with my good friend Tom. Tom, it's real now. It's real. We've been in the pipeline for a little while, but just another month. The launch day is here.
Take a look around.
It's not bad, is it?
Look at this, everybody. Thank you for being with us. Thank you for sticking with us as well, I think we should say. We haven't changed a lot. The league has changed. I can't even believe you're saying championship. The word championship is ridiculous. The actual word is not ridiculous, but the fact that we are both in it in some cases is ridiculous. We are so excited to get going. I'm proud and privileged to be here with you again. Got the call up. I'm actually in your house, in the studio, the podcast studio, and a little bit of Fratton Park in the background as well, which has made me very happy.
And we should say that is, we didn't make that.
It's a good segue for you, that was.
It's good. We didn't make that. I think we're talented, but we're not talented enough to make that. That's another, and we've got a lovely piece of wooden grounds beauty. They are very, very, very cool, and they are our season sponsors. I mean, we're going up in the world. We've got a season sponsor for Just Another Month, the Championship monthly show for the first time ever, which we're very, very excited about. And you can't just, it's not just Oxford and Pompey, that he does so many. Matt, his name is. He's a very, very talented guy. Also, the opening title, a sequence graphic was made by Matt as well. He's been a massive help in taking this
show, the Wembley one.
We can get the Wembley one as well. And this is the Wembley one. That Matt is also a Bolton fan.
He?
He made this, and I don't think it was a very comfortable experience.
Did he make it with his eyes shut?
I think he must have, especially the bit with the score at the top there. But you can get your hands on your own stadium and your own maps as well, because they're very, very cool, the map ones. I think I like the map ones just as much as the actual stadium ones. I think the detail is great. And you can go on Wooden Ground, the website, Google that, and you can get a discount code, JWARD10 for 10% off.
Their memories as well, I just think they're really smart, and I really like the Fratton Park one, but that is like a Google Earth image of Fratton Park, like from the top. I've seen that map so many times, and to have it in wooden format, really nicely finished off. I like how it's just slightly burnt as well. They're really smart, and this is the thing is, yes, it's a season sponsor, but it's the kind of thing that we'd put on our walls anyway. So, and also, speaking about walls, you've got a load of other stuff going on in here as well.
We've got I don't think this camera picks it up. This one definitely doesn't. That won't. But we have got one down in that bottom.
It's got someone's surname on it. Are we going to talk about him, or should we save that?
We'll save that for later on in the show. If you can guess which player we're talking about, it's a new poster that's up on the wall. With this shot, I don't think you can see it. Thankfully, that wasn't intentional. I promise.
It was. Anyway, it very much was.
I think it's important we speak about how we got here.
Yeah.
Because we are here.
But physically here?
Physically here. I mean,
right.
You drove,
okay.
I just went up the stairs.
Yeah.
But, I mean, as football team supporters, and as two teams that have found their way back into the Championship for the first time in 25 years for you. Not as long as that, but still quite a while.
12 seasons.
Yeah, not quite 25, but it's still...
it's probably half that time. But
it's still a long time ago. And I think, we speak about how excited we are. We speak about how we're looking forward to it, and we're going to speak about this is a preview really to the Championship season from all perspectives, not just Oxford and Pompey. But I think we for 2 seasons, and I think this is our 3rd season, it's been League One reflections, and this time it's not, which is really cool. How do you look back on last season differently, with a little bit longer now since that season ended and you won the league? Because I think for me it was like we won the playoff final. Best day of my life, and then it's been that break and that stop, and I'm like, God, how that turnover of now being like, right, we've now got to compete in a extremely difficult division.
Yeah, it was very much tunnel vision, wasn't it? For a very long time, it was kind of right. We're focused on we just the next game, get the next 3 points. Oh, we're so close now. Oh, Peterborough away, which I kind of look back on and think we probably won it at Peterborough away, and I've said this to you on a couple of occasions, but that was the moment for me where I was like, right, this team's got something about it that's going to go and win it. Cassini Yengi's running through, finishes that brilliantly. That's probably my favourite moment / goal of the season, other than the obvious of Connor Shaughnessy. And actually, I say that it was the next game, it was the next 3 points, but it all did happen really quickly. For me, it happened really quickly that night at the Barnsley game, because we were terrible for so much of that game. And then all of a sudden, it just completely flipped on its head. And I don't think anyone was I suppose it was, and I talked about it being the prelude of the season, whereby Conor Shaughnessy scored numerous late goals that meant massive things happened. He scored in the Bolton game, scored a late goal against Carlisle, scored a late goal against Wickham. I think he scored a late goal against Carlisle. I know it was definitely 3 late goals. The Wickham one, 100%. That was probably the biggest one that sticks out in my mind, at least, and in many Pompey fans' minds, I'm sure, watching. It was those little moments were kind of clues, I think. Something up above was telling us that that's maybe what's going to just get you over the line. And that was, it was the greatest season, I think, looking back, that I've had as a Pompey fan in my relatively short time watching us. And there'll be so many people out there, I'm sure, watching thinking, crikey, Tom, that's a rather sheltered Pompey life you've lived, because we've had so much domestic success and we're even in Europe in living memory. But I wasn't quite old enough to appreciate all of that. So other than the FA Cup win, I know we had the trophy final against Sunderland in 2019, but as a season in what has been pretty much downs, and only recently a couple of ups for Pompey over the last 10 to 15 years, it was unbelievable. And I should say as well, at the top of this, and we make it very clear that our teams are now both back in the Championship. We are not Championship experts, ladies and gentlemen. We are not going to pretend to be. We're very much learning as we go with you. We're both entering a new league. We can do as much pre-season reading. We can listen to podcasts. We can talk to other fans who we know of Championship clubs. But we will only really get the knowledge through lived experience. And I think so much of this league is going to be what we see on the eye. You can watch as many highlight packages or whatever, but until I think maybe Christmas, I think we'll probably be in a better position to properly comment on the real state of play and the real kind of Championship establishment. I don't know how you feel about that, but I think we're still very youthful in our Championship wisdom right now.
Yeah, I think with Oxford it was longer. Like, it was really long in the fact that it felt like it was dragging on, but in a good way. It just was stretched. You have the playoffs, and I think it's a week to a week and a half, 10-day period, the playoffs, including the semi-final and the final. And it feels like 3 weeks. It feels like a month at that time, because you are sort of the first leg, if it goes well or if it goes badly, whatever happens. Obviously, we won that first leg 1-0. For Peterborough fans, they're so desperate to try and play that second game. So it feels like it's going for a long time. For us, it's like we don't want that game because we're winning at the moment. We wanted to ruin it. Thankfully, we didn't. So, and then you got the final, and that's just like, your head is in tatters because you are just desperately.
You did well to hide that your head was tattered that day.
But it's that balance of like, we're so excited for it to happen. We want the day. It could be amazing, but it's like the closer we get, the closer we are to potentially being the worst day of our life. And that's good. On reflection, that's great. I'm sure Bolton fans and Matt probably doesn't feel like that. But I think as Oxford United fans, on reflection, it was the lead up to one of the best days, if not the best day of my life, especially in football, the best day.
Do you think is the best way to do it?
And I think it is. I think you've always said that. I think we said that the last time we spoke in person on this channel. In fact, I think there is one video before this comes out, and that was outside Wembley Stadium after the morning after we won that game. And you said if there's a way to do it, that's the way to do it. Winning the league, I think, I know I'm biased, probably it's just second behind the playoff final win, I think. But
not as champions.
Do you reckon?
I think the fashion in which you do it,
maybe I'd
probably playoffs, Wembley, final, all that kind of thing. But to win the league as champions, I tell you what, a firm third place is coming second place, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, I think so. If there's I wouldn't say there's a better way of doing it. I think it's just there's definitely more drama in doing it through the playoffs. But it's not nice drama. It's not nice drama. But now we know the outcome. In hindsight, I think it's beautiful drama. We should also speak about how, before we've got lots of different categories to go through. They will change when the football season actually starts. But as this being the preview, we're going to look at the transfer window, the strong starters, the slow starters. We're going to speak about the favourites, the teams that have just been relegated from the Premier League. We'll be playing teams that have just been in the Premier League, teams that should probably be in the Premier League with their squad and that team. I think you'll probably know where I'm going. There's a few teams in there, but one that stands out for me is a very, very strong squad that haven't lost as many players as I was hoping they might be losing at this point, but they seem to be hanging on to them. Not yet. Not yet. We're going to speak about the dark horses and put forward some suggestions for that. The new boys, which is nice and easy for us, speaking about Oxford and Pompey in slightly more detail, plus Derby County, of course, who came up in second place. and we've got the new managers, because the Championship, there's plenty of new faces.
Some changes.
A few names that we don't quite know loads about, and we're not going to pretend to know loads about, and some faces that have come back after some dodgy recent jobs. I think you'll know where we're going with that. A certain ex-Manchester United player.
Great as a player.
Great player. We'll find out. I'm sure he's looking forward to finding out as well. He's got a big job on his hands and a point to prove. Let's start with the transfer window, because the summer, the games are over, the season's over, summer kicks off, everybody goes, forget the football, let's see who we're trying to sign. Let's see who we can bring in.
Yep.
And I think we're in a different position, because we're trying to bring in players that can ultimately keep us in the Championship. Other teams are going to be looking at bringing in players to get them out of the Championship. And I think that's the beauty of this league. You are one league away from the best league in the world. Teams are recruiting in different ways. Yep. I think in the Championship as well, it's probably the biggest. I could be wrong. I'm saying this. I'm believing it as I say it. You've got very, very contrasting budgets. I think in all four leagues, you've probably got the most contrasting budgets. Maybe a little bit in the Premier League, and you look at the top end of that. But definitely in the Football League, the bottom end of the Championships, the top end of the Championship, teams have got lots of money to spend, or in some cases, less. I wouldn't say very little, but definitely less. Let's speak about the strong starters then. And Tom, you're going to kick us off on this, because they've made one signing that you're very excited about, Sheffield Wednesday.
Yes.
They've been very aggressive in the window last season, just about stayed in it. I think this time last summer, Wednesday fans were not very optimistic. Nope. Darren Moore just got them promoted. He's given the boot. Chanziri, a big fallout there. And we saw the end of that Sheffield Wednesday season. It was very, very encouraging. Flick a switch, and it was a bit of a nightmare. And the season that followed, up until Danny was appointed, it was a nightmare too. Yep. But they started the window strong, and they've made one signing that's exciting you.
They have, yeah, and there's going to be plenty of people out there that are going to be watching this and thinking, I know exactly where he's going with this. It is, of course, Jamal Lowe, who I don't want to say it lightly to you, and I don't think that this is going to be too extreme to say, but I think Jamal Lowe is up there with one of my modern day favourite Pompey heroes or Pompey players. Just anyone to wear the shirt. He was front and centre of so many fantastic moments during his time with the club. I think would have been fantastic for us to have him back. You'll remember the Wembley chip against Sunderland that he scored in 2019. And then the commentary line was, he grew up in the shadows of Wembley and now he's scored there, and it could have been the winner. It wasn't in the end, but it was an audacious effort. And actually, I think we would have loved to have him back. I actually think it's a superb bit of business from Wednesday, and it's one of a number of deals that I think they've already done to align themselves in the Championship. And you mentioned it there, they don't want a start to the season that they had last year. And I think actually there was even a moment under Danny Roll where we were kind of like, oh, if this isn't going to start clicking at some point pretty soon, then they're going to have issues, and they're going to be very much looking over their shoulders more than looking forward. And actually, the back end of the Championship last season, Danny Roll was on a roll with them, wasn't he?
He was, and I think they wanted optimism, Sheffield Wednesday fans at the end. They wanted that optimism. They wanted to stay in the league first and foremost, and they did that on the final day. But they wanted to feel like they were going, it sounds cliche, they're going somewhere, and there's a direction. And under Chanziri, especially in the early stages of that season with him as the chairman, and he still is the chairman, he still is the man in charge upstairs, there was a feeling that they were just going down, and that direction was a backward direction. Under Danny Roll, that he's really, really transformed that football club. He's a young coach. I think he's someone that, we look at their transfer business, the biggest piece of business and the best piece of business that Sheffield Wednesday do and have done is giving him that extension and making sure he signs that contract. That will be forgotten about because they've signed quite a few players and they will continue to sign players. Mm-hmm. But remember, at the end of the season, giving Danny Roll a new contract, it will be the best piece of business they do because, like I said, he's a really, really exciting manager who I think if he did, if he had left Sheffield Wednesday, he would have gone and got another job in England and probably Europe very, very easily. The
other club I wanted to mention as a fast starter was Coventry City.
Yeah.
We all know about the Mason Clark move. That was wasn't a shadow over Peterborough's end to the season, was it? But I think when a player that you know has moved on or will be moving on in the summer, there's always that little bit of an element of, well, he's not going to be around, is he? So this is kind of a bit of a... There was an element of the last hurrah, wasn't there, with Mason Clark, who we all know about and Jack's documented on this channel many times, and a lot of League One stuff that I'm sure many people would have watched last season would have, he was in absolutely everybody's League One team this season, wasn't he? So
the numbers were incredible.
Yeah, that's a fantastic signing, and sort of the goals and assists return was
the
ridiculous.
The output was great.
Jack Redoni's an excellent signing as well. It's either Louis or Lewis Spinks, not sure on the pronunciation, but this is an interesting story for him. So he's born in Gillingham. He's a product of Tottenham's academy. He's only 22, but he's played his football out in the US and Italy for a couple of years now. So that's a really exciting one, and I think part of this opening episode is actually gonna quite a lot of it will the conversation that we have will formulate around the use of the foreign markets, particularly the European market. We're going to come on to, I know. He
was also on loan at Coventry City for 23 games last season.
Yeah, so they know about him.
They know about him.
They know about him.
But his story is incredible.
He's young to have achieved so much. Like he's year older than me, 2 years older than you.
22, right?
Yeah. So, of course, this is all twinned with Callum O'Hare's departure, which, I mean, I'm not pretending that I'm a Coventry City expert here, and I am in no means a Coventry City expert, and probably the only full game I watched of them last season was the Man United game at Wembley in the FA Cup. I've watched bits and pieces of commentary. He was always massively integral to what they were achieving, and he was always massively impressive. Very much an integral part of their team. I believe you would have seen him when you played him in the FA Cup last season. I don't know where he's going though, because
I think Sheffield United are interested.
Right.
I think Sheffield United are the front runners at the moment.
But he has just left and then not re-signed straight away.
No, yeah. So it seems as though maybe it was in line. Maybe an offer came up that he wasn't quite sure about, and now he's gone to Sheffield United. He's left Coventry City. I think he definitely will be going somewhere in the Championship.
Great player. I'd love him at Pompey.
He's a free transfer as well, which I think is fantastic. I'd be interested to see what he's after.
4 years at Coventry.
Yeah, true.
So
I'd be interested to see what he's after, but I think Sheffield United feels like a good move. That feels like a good move for Sheffield United.
He will step up. I don't think he'll step down or across. Slow starters?
Yeah, let's talk about some slow starters. Hull City are definitely, in my eyes, a slow starter because of what they are doing, but not what's coming in. Their departures are concerning me.
Yeah,
I think they're concerning everybody, really. Are they? I don't think Hull City fans are surprised they're losing these players, because I think it was pretty clear when they didn't get promoted, they didn't get into the playoffs. When you got the player like Jacob Greaves, you've got a player like Philogene, you're probably going to lose them. You're either going to have to tie them down on a long-term contract.
Were they expecting to lose both of them?
I don't know. They were good. They were really, really good.
Philogene in particular.
Yeah, and I think Jacob Greaves, I think they got £20 million. Potentially that's with add-ons for Ipswich Town. I think the way they're recruiting, I know it's not talking about the Premier League, but Ipswich, you were in the Championship last season. They're clearly finding that market of who are the best talents in the Championship. And Greaves was fantastic at centre-back. He's physical. He's a ball player. And he's someone that Hull City will need to replace. And when we speak about slow starters, they haven't really had many additions. They've got a new manager. They're losing two of their most key players of last season. Kiefer Moore's rumoured to be returning. I think Sheffield United have pipped them to getting that deal done. So Kiefer Moore isn't going to be going to Hull City after he was linked. Ryan Giles, who they have signed, he arrived. He's now rumoured to leave in the same window to go to Middlesbrough. Yes. Because that was I think it was an obligation to buy. So they had to buy him part of the loan deal they had on loan from Luton.
I was going to say, they've already had him before.
On loan.
Yeah.
Middlesbrough have already had him on loan as well. And now, because they had to buy him Hull, he could be straight off in the same window. So a lot of
it's all a bit of a mess. And this is all under new
managers. I think it's also hard, and we'll come on to the manager, Tim Walter, in a minute, or Tim Walter, I think is the German pronunciation. When you are trying to come in and replace someone who is really, really well respected in Liam Rosenior, that's even more difficult. Yeah. I don't think they're not happy with the ownership. I think they've got a bit of trust in that ownership, but they have to get this right because you're losing some key players. The manager's gone, and they're bringing in an unknown manager that we'll speak about later.
Just one more thing on the whole thing as well is replacing the incredibly important loan players that formed so much part of their success last season.
Morton on loan from Liverpool was quality for them.
You think Fabio Carvalho as well, he's not going to be involved, is he? Their top 6 goal scorers from last season will not be playing for them next season. So goal scorer number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6, all 6 of their top goal scorers are gone.
Slow starters. Start recruiting some attackers.
Yeah, I mean, even by the time you see this, because I believe this is going to be on the editing suite for probably a week or so until we release it, which is why we didn't want transfers to form the biggest part of this episode, did we? Because we knew that that would be something that would keep on developing and going. But yeah, right now at the time of recording, Hull need to get their boots on.
They do. Watford's an interesting one. You've got this one to speak about.
Yep.
Watford, again, it's the difficult... With all these clubs, there's a lot of teams in this division that you sort of go, oh, they're in there as well. Like, forgot about them. And that's not under disrespectful. That's in a way of like, this league is stacked. It is stacked with intriguing football clubs in intriguing positions. And I remember Watford were in the final of the FA Cup. Sorry. They were in the Premier League and they were sacking managers, but it was working for them. They were staying in the Premier League. It was ruthless, but it was working. They're now entering a new era, or carrying on the era, but from a fresh season with Tom Cleverley in charge. And yeah, the ownership's a bit strange. They have lost a few key players that you're going to speak about as well, quite briefly. The parachute payments, I've added this as well. The parachute payments, I think this is the first season, or it might be the second season where they're going to be, they've run out of those parachute payments. So the financial situation, they're not receiving that from the Premier League anymore, because it has been a while since they last been in that top division. Yeah, I think it's they've bought in Moussa Sissoko as well, which is fascinating. Played with Tom Cleverley, like
the Moussa Sissoko, like the one that everyone knows about.
The 34-year-old on a 2-year contract. I mean, if you're Sissoko, you're thinking,
thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I'm 34. I think I nearly got my French club, not solely, but his French club nearly got relegated, and he's now got to move back in England on a 2-year contract to 34. He's done pretty well. That agent, I think I'd be giving my agent a pay rise. I mean, he has played with Tom Cleverley. He's played at Watford before, but. Yeah, not quite enough for me. I imagine they will do more business financially. Wait and see what that looks like. But Tom Cleverley, yeah, it's how long will he last? First and foremost at Watford, but he's a young coach. They look like they're going to give it a go.
It's a big job, isn't it? It's yeah. You mentioned ownership there. I think fans aren't, in the majority of terms, particularly endeared to the ownership structure at the club. You mentioned Kilos's Kone off to Marseille. I think as well, you mentioned the Premier League pedigree. It was only 5 or 6 years ago that Watford were in the Premier League, and they had a relatively long-ish stint by modern standards for clubs that aren't completely established Premier League teams. But they've been going backwards for a little while now. And actually, Watford are an example of quite a lot of Championship teams this season. And we were actually going to, I think it was mentioned at the top of your notes, how open the Championship might be. I think a major reason behind all of that is because there are so many clubs, as we're talking about, that are hitting reset buttons. Like, there's so many clubs that are starting a new era, or have got a new manager, or or are new to the league, like Oxford, Pompey and Derby are. So I think there's a lot of unknowns, and it's why this episode's not difficult to make for us, but I think we are sort of, to coin a phrase, talking if, buts and maybes and not absolutes, because we don't really know how things are going to go. And I know no one can predict how the Championship's going to look, but I think this season in particular, not that we've been massive Championship followers, or I personally haven't been a massive Championship follower because we've been nowhere near it for so long. But I think this is a really interesting one to call, and maybe a difficult one to call. But yeah, you're right. That Watford no longer really widely considers as favourites to go up, and perhaps that's maybe been the case.
That could suit them as well.
For a couple of seasons now.
Goes a little bit.
I mean, there's a lot of teams in Championship that are under pressure for success this season, and we're going to come to the favourites in just a moment or two. You're right, the parachute payments have now run out. They've been going backwards. They want to go forwards. I remember watching one of Gab's shows a couple of weeks ago. I had a really good Watford fan on there, and he said that they've been going backwards for far too long now. And if you go backwards or even stand still in football, things catch up with you very quickly. So yeah, let's hope that Watford can get going this season.
I think with all these though, it's about aligning the recruitment, aligning the head coach, and
get all the variables right.
We can bring it back to League One briefly. The teams that went up, they aligned at the end, definitely. You have to. I think with Watford, it's one of those where you don't quite know. I don't want to go into too much detail on Watford, but I think it's been clear that recruitment has been agent-driven for the last couple of years, which is dangerous. I think that's a little bit of a controversial topic. I think there's an agent and a little bit of bother at Watford who's been involved in their recruitment over the last couple of years. They've got a new, fresh face in Tom Cleverley, who's new to the managerial world, the coaching world, as a number one for sure.
Which is as much of a positive as it is a negative.
So it's up in the air with a few of these football clubs. It's an up in the air, but we'll wait and see. We'll wait and see what it looks like. They've been a little bit slower in the market, but that could be changing by the time you're watching this. They're an intriguing talking point, I think.
Is it favourites time?
It's time for some favourites.
Am I starting or are you starting?
Yeah, you can say you've got the first. You got the first one here. It's a relegated Premier League club.
We should say our three favourites are, I think, in large part Leeds, Burnley, and Luton.
They feel like the favourites in terms of, again, you can go. We'll dive into other teams that really could, turn out to have fantastic seasons. But on paper,
most people are thinking
these are the bookies' favourites.
Yeah, and I think that's probably what most fans are thinking as well. I think we'll come on to Leeds in a moment. The extent to which Archie Gray's losing Archie Gray to Tottenham is significant. That those nailed on departures will come on to as well, but I'm going to start talking about Luton Town, who we're going to talk about Sheffield United in a minute, and I know I'm mentioning three clubs already there, but the Sheffield United I've got a bit of chat on a kind of a psychological scar of the Premier League. I don't know whether the extent to Luton's exit from the Premier League is as much of a psychological. Because you're right. And respectfully to Luton fans, I think they were just really excited to be there.
They gave it a good go.
They gave it a good go, and they were so close to. It was between them and Forest, wasn't it, on who was going to go down, and in the end, it ended up being Luton. And I think it was even went to like the last day away at Tottenham. I believe I'm right in thinking that Luton
right
missed
at the end,
out.
wasn't it?
And I think they had a real. I know this is a bit of an overused term in football, but a real fairy tale ride in the Premier League. You think about the Arsenal game. I remember watching that with my dad at home where they were so close to getting a result. I think they had tightish games against the likes of Manchester City, and I don't think they were far off it in terms of the established Big Six. It wasn't like they were getting hammered 8 or 9 like Sheffield United had a couple of times last season. They'll be without Ross Barkley and Gabriel Osho.
Osho, yeah.
Osho.
Barkley's the big standout.
Barkley's a big standout heading into this season. Luke Berry's gone to Charlton under Nathan Jones. Will they keep Alfie Doughty is a big question. You might know by the time you watch this. That might be different. They'll, of course, be hoping so. Jean Baptiste, a clever arrival, some midfield stability. It's kind of Barkley goes, so you bring in Baptiste. The end of Lokonga's loan is, I think, significant, and I think they'll still be wanting more. The two relegations for Luton separated by 16 years. So their relegation 16 years ago was from League 2 to the National League.
And this one's
fast forward 16 years, this relegation is from the Premier League down to the Championship. They've had literally 15 years of upward trajectory. Yeah. So I come back to the point about emotional damage as a Luton fan. I don't think they'll be too panicked by the whole thing. I've mentioned that. I think also it's a really well-run club.
It's so well-run. I think it's the best. It could be the best in England. It could be. It really could be.
Pompey's not badly run.
Well, you haven't been to the Premier League.
No.
Yet.
But I mean, I don't know whether...
You have been to the Premier League, but not in the same rises.
It's difficult to say whether... We were very badly run a long time ago, so maybe we're a little bit fortunate that we're so much better run now, but I don't know whether we're in the minority of clubs in terms of Luton, Pompey. I don't know how many more you could name that fit into the category of well-run in the Championship, because I think there's a lot of absent owners. We very, very briefly come back to Watford. I think their ownership is maybe a little bit too emotionally involved. I don't know whether
they've got a lot of fingers in a few pies. They've got the Udinese link in Italy. They're a bit of a... So they're a bit all over the shop.
You can be maybe too attached. Maybe there's an argument you can be slightly too detached.
Luton have got the sweet spot, I think.
Yeah, and I think with a good squad, Rob Edwards is fantastic.
Signing a new contract.
Well-run club. We can see why it's obvious they're among the favourites for many.
I'm intrigued with Luton. I don't know whether or not we're going to see the Luton that Rob Edwards maybe wants to see more of. I mean, the attacking side of Luton, because Rob Edwards was at Forest Green, wasn't he, before Watford, very briefly, then got the Luton job.
Recruited by Richard Hughes.
Yeah, was he? He would have been at Forest Green, of course. Yeah. And he played a very, very good brand of football. Obviously, when you get to the Premier League, you can't really do that.
No.
If you're, in that same, ilk, because you're going to get beaten pretty comfortably, you'd imagine, playing in that way. I mean, true of Luton coming back to the Championship, are they going to adjust and play more attacking football and then adjust again in the Premier League, or maybe that timescale will allow them to continue with that? Or are they going to say, no, it worked in the Premier League in certain games, let's do that all the time in the Championship?
Who knows?
It's intriguing, I think, because you've got up and come down, you've got a manager that wants to play good football and didn't play bad football in the Premier League, but you have to be more pragmatic.
Leeds and Burnley?
That's interesting. very interesting. I mean, we can touch on where do we go first. Where could we go? Let's go Burnley first.
Okay.
Because Burnley are again a team that have had an interesting summer. For a large part of it, didn't have a manager. Vincent Kompany went to Bayern Munich. Talk about let's move on with that. I get it to a certain extent. He's a good young coach. I think that's where football is going now. If you play good football and you try and have in their eyes, he played some amazing football at Championship level with Burnley. He continued to do that in the Premier League. Didn't have the players, and they were relegated in the end pretty comfortably. And I think they were just way too open. But he got him the Bayern Munich job, so maybe he
demonstrates what a weird career football management is.
Yeah, I think that's where we're going. I think that football management is now going down the route of identity.
I think
philosophy.
There's an argument if his name wasn't Vincent Kompany.
Yeah.
But anyway,
and if he adjusted to playing more direct, I don't think he would have got it. But he could have kept Burnley in the Premier League if he did that.
It's so bizarre. But good luck to him.
We won't get into it.
Good luck to him.
Scott Parker is the new manager at Burnley. How do I feel about it?
There's a lot of people who don't really...
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? Scott Parker's not weird. That's harsh. He's not weird. But it's a bit of a weird appointment because at Championship level, he's got a great record.
He was brilliant at Bournemouth.
He had a good Bournemouth squad, though. It's important to mention. Yeah, I think if he didn't get that Bournemouth team promoted, I think that probably would have been a bit of a disgrace. But it's 2 promotions from the Championship.
The headline is you can't argue with 2 promotions from the Championship, can you?
And that record
serial
serial promoter. You can't argue with that. What you can argue with is when you get to the Premier League and you fall out with the owner very quickly and lose your job. That's a problem.
Are they worried about that right now?
No, but I actually think with Scott Parker, he seems to be... I've never met him, but he seems to be, from what I've seen, he's got a bit of a record of falling out with owners. And you don't quite know when that's going to be. I mean, he had a stint in Belgium at Club Brugge, which went terribly wrong. So he has got a point to prove in that stint. He's got an opportunity here. I think Burnley's a good opportunity. It's a young squad. Yep. I think one of the youngest. I think it's the youngest in the division we looked at before we started recording. It's a hungry squad. It's one that might have benefited from, going up, having a year in the Premier League. They're not going to lose too many faces, we'd imagine. Come back down. They've experienced that now, and they could benefit from that. I think it would have benefited a little bit more if they had the same manager.
Yeah.
But that squad has got that experience. And there were some really young, exciting, fresh faces that I think just weren't ready and maybe set up in the right way in the Premier League.
I think it's also the squad that's got the most faces from abroad, I believe, as well in the Championship.
They've got a very, very good use of the foreign market, and they've continued to do that in this window so far. It looks like James Trafford's going to go. I think they're going to have to. I think Muret's gone as well. The other goalkeeper. They're going to be a bit of a goalkeeping rejig, as you would have seen in my video that came out before this one. I did highlight a goalkeeper they should go and sign, but the squad is. I think it's a good squad. It's a very good Championship squad for sure. It needs a bit of work in certain areas. Scott Parker's a question mark. It's intriguing. It's one of those where you just have to sort of see he needs a good start because there are a few Burnley fans that aren't quite convinced. But a good start, and it's amazing what football fans can do. You start well, you look at that squad and you go, maybe we can give us a really good go and get back to the Premier League quickly.
The closest team to get promoted to the Premier League and didn't last season, Leeds United. Are people, in your view, overstating the loss of Archie Gray, or is that a really significant departure?
He is. He's a young, very young talent that is, I think was ready for the move. Tottenham's a big move. We've seen a lot of young players go to Tottenham over the years.
And it not work out as well. And it not
work out from the Football League. I think Jack Clark was one that we know. Joe Rodon was one. They've recruited from the EFL before. I think Gareth Bale, that he would have been in the Premier League with Southampton, wouldn't he?
Please, we don't even mention them, do we?
Sorry.
Championship show.
We've seen young players go to Tottenham before.
Yeah.
And it maybe and it work out and it not work out. It's a great move for him. He is an extremely good talent and he showed that. Playing in a position, he's a midfielder by trade, I believe. He was playing at fullback in a quite hybrid fullback role, but he was doing a great job.
And he's a teenager
still. He's a teenager. It's £40 million thereabouts. I imagine that's including add-ons. I don't quite know, but it's a good bit of money.
Ridiculous potential.
£40 million for a team receiving that in the Championship. But
for
it's a
19-year-old. Wow.
He's an exciting player. But they've kept hold of Somerville so far. They've kept hold of Nonto so far. Ruta they've kept hold of. Kamara looks like he's going to Rennes in France. They've signed Joe Rodon. That was part of the swap deal with the Archie Gray one. They've kept him. Ampadu, of course, is so far staying as well.
But this could all change.
This could change, but as of right now, they've kept hold of the core and the spine of that team. And they came so close. They got to the playoff final. Sometimes a playoff final. It's not for everybody, is it? No, I'm joking. I should be upsetting Leeds United fans on the first
I was going to say, good start.
But no, they got close. They got very, very close on the day Southampton, did beat them. Sorry.
I think Pompey fans were the only group of fans that really wanted Leeds to win that day. Every single other team was rooting for the Scummers, which is a real shame. But Leeds fans, we were with you on that day.
And we'll be with you this season.
Looking forward to seeing you all at Ellen Road on the opening day. Oh, mate, that's going to be so amazing. Cool, I'm so excited.
It's cool.
Hotels booked.
Are you look, things can change, but this Leeds team is very, very strong. And you still feel if they do lose some of those players, they're going to get some big fees for them. Look, they're financially probably not in the best shape. They can't spend £40 million on players in one bulk, but they've got some great talent, and they'll bring in some good fees for those players if they do.
Yeah, and there's cash in reserve from the Archie Gray deal, isn't there? So if you're saying if they can't, I nearly said the word spunk then on your show. I'm probably not going to use that one. If they can't
splash,
thank you. If they can't splash that in one hit, then maybe we'll wait for them to do that in dribs and trams.
They are the bookies' favourites as of right now, and I can see why. It's a good team. It's a good team that also have got now going into this season a real hunger to put things right and not fall short again.
Do you want me to do a U-bend and chat Sheffield United?
Yeah, they aren't the bookies' favourites. In fact, Sheffield United are being pretty harshly backed by the bookies, and for a good reason, because there's work to do at Sheffield United.
Another club with a rebuild required, Wardy. Another rebuild needed for Chris Wilder. This is probably... I was about to say approaching double digits for rebuilds for Chris Wilder, but it's nowhere near that. But it maybe feels like that if you're a Sheffield United fan.
It's been there a long time.
Yeah, and I think we know that fan bases move in herds, don't we? And I think having them backing of the majority of the fan base at Bramall Lane, you might argue is half the battle. And if he's got that in... I'm not a Blades fan. We don't live anywhere near Sheffield. We don't know what the vibe is on the red side of that city. But what we do know is they are an extremely passionate bunch of people when it comes to football. And both clubs in Sheffield, I know they won't want me tarnishing them both with the same brush, because I know that, and that's another thing, is derbies in the Championship are going to be absolutely unbelievable. And I can't wait to see all of those and talk about them on here and on various different platforms that we're doing. But I think... yeah, it's a footballing city. It's a footballing city that is steeped in an awful lot of history. And Chris Wilder is a legend amongst a lot of that recent living history. And sometimes that can work in your favour. Maybe it kind of... it's difficult, isn't it? When he's such a legend... and it starts not to work, it just feels...
hurts, doesn't it?
It hurts, but it also gets a bit awkward, doesn't it? It's like, oh, you've done so great for this place, but it's just not quite happening. So hopefully they don't end up in another awkward patch at any point. What's the psychological implications following a season where you get schooled, battered, hammered?
Over 100 goals conceded in one season. 104 goals.
Bad, isn't it?
It's that... I know, look... it's the Premier League. It's brutal. It's the best division in the world. That team wasn't really... I think Sheffield United fans went into the Premier League thinking we're not quite right here. They considered... They sold both their best players going into the Premier League, and that's not good preparation for that division.
No.
But they got battered.
But even in games where they've played well, or they did play well on the eye, I thought they started pretty well against Newcastle away at St James's Park, and then they ended up losing that one by a 3 or 4 goal margin. And in many cases, that happened on quite a regular basis. And the flip side of that, the Newcastle game at Bramall Lane, that was nearly double figures to 0. That springs to mind. And Arsenal weren't far off that against them. Those games were both at Bramall Lane, I've just mentioned. They were both spectacularly...
a lot of bees there.
A lot of bees. Spectacularly bruising. So
at Bramall Lane.
Lane.
How many bees can you fit in one sentence?
The question is, how do you shake that? And can you go into a season one step down the ladder in the Championship with some restorative confidence, in full knowledge that actually their second-tier track record in English football, you look at the last 3 times they've been in the Championship, second and promoted, 5th, and then second and promoted. But if you think about it more broadly as well, don't forget that meteoric rise from League One to the Premier League within 4 seasons, 2016-17 onwards. The other flip side of that, as you look at it, is the number of free transfers leaving the club, the number of contracts that have come to an end or even curtailments, Cameron Archer back to Villa, Ollie McBurney gone, Max Lowe to Wednesday. Then, of course, the elephant in the room is starting on -2 points. I know John Egan's gone as well, isn't he? So,
dark horses. We've got a few here. Bristol City, we're going to speak about. QPR, we're going to chat about. We will touch on Sheffield Wednesday again briefly. Millwall as well. Tom, where do you want to start?
I can do a bit of Millwall. 3 excellent additions through the door for Millwall in the last week or so. Jay could tell you that they've got League One's best goalkeeper from last season.
The numbers don't lie. He was good.
He was good. He was good. Yeah, I don't think he's quite Will Norris, but he was. It's very good. And you might even argue to the contrary. And I'm sure he's sat there grinding his teeth watching this right now out there at me, thinking he is. I don't know who it was that I spoke about this time last year with you, but it's not just identifying areas where they're light on the water, but actually going out, plugging those holes, making that difference and bringing in the players that they want, identifying areas, adding to them, filling holes is clearly what they've done. And I think and I'm sure Championship fans out there watching this, and I would probably argue for my own manager at a club and how good a fit that is, but I think you would struggle to name too many managers that are better suited to a club than Neil Harris and Millwall, because he is Mr. Millwall Football Club. I do have a slight concern. Macaulay Langstaff, don't get me wrong, fantastic. Like, his goal scoring record in League Two is ridiculously good.
And the National League.
I think the majority of it is in the National League, actually, isn't it? Some of it's in League Two. But his goals to appearance ratio for Nottingham Forest is ridiculous. National League and League Two goals are obviously so much easier to come by than a Championship goal. We know that. And actually, you probably don't get a team. I'm saying you don't get a team that's better suited to a manager-club combo than Neil Harris and Millwall. But you probably don't get more Route 1 than Millwall in the Championship. Langstaff is not Route 1, is he?
No, he's not. No, he's not. I think with Langstaff, I love the signing. I love it. I love that he's got an opportunity to step up, and he's got an opportunity to play in the Championship at Notts County. I think that probably would have been a bit of a stretch to sort of see. I mean, they started in the National League. That's where a lot of his goals came from before. He also came from a National League side and a non-league side. He's got that chance now. And you're right. Stylistically, it's not a fit I would have maybe gone for, but we don't know what Neil Harris and his plan is. I think if they go with a 4-4-2, again, this would be a bit of a repeat of what I said in the video yesterday, I can see a big target man striker flicking it on to Langstaff, and that could be could work. I think as a partnership on his own, as a lone striker in a Millwall side, not totally getting it. Still a great goal scorer, gets chances. He's probably going to take them, but I think it'd be even more beneficial if he had a back to goal physical presence type, flicking it on to Langstaff, who will get in behind, who will work off the ball, but also can finish in a high number of chances. That's what I can see more. Either way, though, like you say, we've seen a lot of players score goals at League One, National League, League Two level, make a move to the Championship. Hasn't worked out. They've disappeared. Langstaff, look, his record is phenomenal. If he gets it right, it's going to be a top striker. And he was wanted by a few champions.
He was, yeah. I think he was even, at one point, there was some kind of Pompey link on that one as well, and obviously didn't happen. We wish the best to absolutely every single one of these Championship clubs. Obviously we do, and we wish the best to all these signings. But I am then going to take that by saying, well, Langstaff gives you goals, yes. Does he give you an awful lot else as a profile of a striker? And I know that a sole purpose of a striker is to score goals. I don't think there's masses and masses to his game other than the goals. And at the time,
his goals are good. I know his goals are good, and I'm from Notts County fans. I know his goals are good, and he's a really hard worker. But you're right, he's not a back to goal physical presence that you'd associate with Millwall.
No,
but he's hard worker and he scores goals.
Fine. That might just do it then. That might be all they need. Maybe they don't need the full package as a number 9. Maybe that's not quite... And as you say, time will tell. Maybe there's a little stylistic tweak, final third of the pitch, that Neil Harris is going to be able to execute with relative ease. We don't know. We'll find out. At the time of recording, I think as well, the squad is perhaps a little light, yes, and they'll be pleased as a fan base. On the flip side of that, they've done some strong business early. They're not panic buying at the back end of a window, which I think maybe they've been a little bit too averse to recently as a club. They're not panicking around trying to get anyone in to assemble a side. They're actually setting their stall out early. Things are going well for them in the window, and long may that continue, because I know if you get on the wrong side of a Millwall fan, they're not be very happy with you. So we don't want to talk them down too much. And as I said, we wish the absolute best to all these sides, and we're being critical as we see it, because we're always going to be on these videos, but we are just so happy to be in the Championship, and we're so grateful to be talking about what is a really high-profile league that we are both going to be lucky enough to follow our teams in. That brings us on nicely to the new boys, unless you've got more.
I think I've got.
You got Bristol City.
I've got Bristol City and QPR briefly, and I think we've done Sheffield Wednesday. They're a dark horse. I'm always really, really wary to say you've done business. You're a dark horse. We've done that before. It's backfired. It can go one of two ways. I'm excited about Sheffield Wednesday. I like Danny Roll. I like what they're doing. Dark horse, maybe a little bit too early, but I like what they're doing. Bristol City, it pains me to say it, but I think Bristol City could be on track to maybe put the mid-table home behind them. And I think they've been saying that for probably, will feel like forever, Bristol City fans. They've been saying that for a long while, but they are building a good squad. They've got a good squad there anyway. Their business so far is intriguing. I'm not going to pretend like we're experts in that either, and I don't think Bristol City fans will know too much about them. I do know the striker they brought in is a unit. He's a unit. He is great in the air. I think technically he's fantastic, because you have to be a Liam Manning player. I think he's a really, really exciting option. He's 2.5 million euros, I think, which is pretty, that's pretty steep. It's expensive. Look, he's a young, unproven talent, which makes it even more on the more expensive side. Look, in comparison to a few others, it's not. But for Bristol City and their budget, it's I imagine a bit of a chunk. And also, like you say, he's never played in the Championship before. But that's all that excites me a little bit more. Really, we don't know what you're about. He could be extremely good. And Liam Manning and the recruitment team at Bristol City have really picked out a worldie there. I know firsthand as an Oxford United fan that Liam Manning, after his first pre-season, can transform a team. He came in after Nigel Pearson. They were still not really sure about the sacking of him as Bristol City fans. Didn't warm to Liam Manning straight away. I think partly because they liked Nigel Pearson. Liam Manning is totally different.
It was tough for him to start.
It was tough for him. The FA Cup run definitely helped him. There were some good performances. There were some not so good ones. Inconsistency was there. But we know, as Oxford United fan and myself, Liam Manning, after a pre-season, they'll come back. And I could be wrong, but when I watched them, the first game back, I think it was QPR. My brother behind the camera will remember this. We played a pre-season friendly against QPR after his first pre-season camp, and we could not recognise the team. He'd improved them that much. And players that had been there before, that in Oxford's case, were in a relegation battle before that. And he is someone that if you give him time, you give him the tools, and you give him that license and the footballing keys, if you like, he can really, really unlock those doors, and he can really start transforming players. Look, will he do it again at Bristol City? He's got talent. He's got talent in that squad. He's got a really, really good squad, and I'm sure he'll want to bring in a few more faces as well. It's intriguing, but I'm excited about Liam Manning, and I can't believe
through
I said
gritted
that.
teeth.
Yeah.
You mentioned QPR there. It was actually this time last year where we were talking about how worried you might have been about QPR, because you absolutely hammered them, didn't you? It's quite a significant goal margin, I seem to remember.
5-0.
This time round, any different?
Yeah, new manager. Gareth Ainsworth has gone. He went partly, I think, midway through that season. Marty came in. Marty Fuentes, I believe that's how you pronounce it. And he's loved already at Queen's Park Rangers. He is. He steered them away from relegation early doors, or fairly early doors.
Remember that Leeds game
we thought,
back end of the season?
He produced Leicester as well. He produced some fantastic results. And, I mean, it couldn't have got much worse under Gareth Ainsworth. That just didn't quite work. The problem that he had was, we know what Wickham sides were like. QPR, maybe not in recent years. They do have a way they want football to be played. You can't really make... No. Look, Gareth Ainsworth had the history with QPR being a player there before. But we know, as a manager, it's effective, but it ain't pretty. And if it becomes ineffective and still not pretty, it can become a disaster.
And doesn't work in the Championship, clearly. You could argue. Or
didn't. And he did... Look, did he have the time? Did he have the budget? I don't think he could. Maybe not. But at the same time, I think even if it had have worked to the best of its ability, it still didn't have that longevity to it. And he didn't have loads and loads of money, but Martin Fuentes probably doesn't have loads and loads of money, but he's got that ability to come in and freshen things up, and he did that last season from January to the end. Only 3 teams got more points than QPR, and that's your stat. That's your stat that you've put in there nicely, which I think is a very, very good indication as to how exciting he is and how
in the
well
Championship,
he's done.
by the way,
in the Championship. And he came in and he parked his footballing identities a little bit because he's a Cruyff disciple, which is
like that one.
We like that one. He's someone that wants to play a good brand of football, but he's come in. They're in a very, very poor situation. They're not really built for him. They're built with Ainsworth, which we know is a very, very. He's not a Cruyff disciple, Gareth Ainsworth.
No,
believe it or not. You've got Steve Cook at the back, and he's a great defender, high line, ball player. Probably not his forte, but he's come in and he's gone right. The first thing is, can we get a little bit technical here? He wants to keep the expected goals down, concede less of the ball, but also concede more of the ball, but concede less shots.
Yeah.
Concede less shots, have a bit more control in the game, because of the Gareth Ainsworth we know, 20% possession. If you end up 20% possession, 0 shots, can be very, very ineffective. Trying to have a bit more control, tighten things up, and who knows, a bit of recruitment, and I think the question will be, will he start installing those ideas this season with a pre-season? It comes down to recruitment. If he can bring the players in that allow him to do that, then he might. If he can't, then they might stay slightly more pragmatic. But I think there's far more positivity at QPR than there ever has been going into a Championship season for a very, very long time.
New boys time?
Time for some new boys. Do you want to start? We haven't touched on Oxford too much. We haven't touched on Derby. We probably should start with Derby County.
Let's start with Derby, and then let's... well, to be fair, I've not got an awful lot to say on Derby. And we should say as well at this point is not every club is going to get a detailed mention.
Not in this one.
On Jam every single month, because there are going to be some clubs that have quiet months. There are going to be some clubs that have busy months. Let us indulge a little bit. We will probably talk about Pompey and Oxford in every month, just because that's where our sort of comfort zones are in terms of talking about football. I think the Derby business has been very Paul Warne so far, and
Is that a compliment?
Depending on your opinion,
on that
I suppose.
Fence.
It depends on... Sorry, I mean, we try not to sit on fences too much, but I think it very much depends on your perspective and whether you... I mean, I've always have been a big Paul Warne fan, and I remember saying to you, I think in the Championship, to you in League One,
now in the Championship,
that if I was to have to choose another League One manager other than John Messino to manage Pompey, it would have probably been Paul Warne.
That surprises me.
Of the selection of maybe there's probably a reason why we couldn't have done, because he might not have been the right fit. I think the major reasons would be his ability to connect with a big fan base. I think he does it really well. I think he's honest. I think he's a man that believes that football's an honest game. And I think he believes that if you put in enough, then you get out enough.
But didn't you have that with Danny Cowley?
We did, but I actually spoke about this in Croatia, which I'm surprised 1 hour in I haven't mentioned that I just got back from Croatia. But I spoke about this with some of the guys out there, and we were saying how Danny was just a little bit too close to being one of the boys in the stands, and just a little bit too close to the supporters, whereby I think Paul's still got that dichotomy with the Derby fans, whereby he can be Paul Warne, the head coach, but also get along well with his players and really sort of get involved in the fan base. And I just really like him. I just think he talks the talk. And I am now going to sort of taint that with a little bit of a negative by saying that he came out publicly and said he was going to lower the overall age of his squad, yet he's still signing more experience. Caelan Jackson's 30, Jerry Yates is 27. Caelan Jackson, I think, is a brilliant player. Hasn't quite got the game time he would have wanted at Ipswich over the last couple of seasons, but that's for obvious reasons, because that game time has been taken up by some of the supreme talent that's got Ipswich to the Championship. Jerry Yates, we had
the Premier League,
I meant to say the Premier League. We got him into the Championship and then the Premier League back to back. I think it wasn't it? Something like that.
That hasn't been mentioned.
No Ipswich fans are watching anymore. Jerry Yates, you mentioned to me that he wasn't someone that you thought had proven track record of being able to do it in the Championship, which I don't always think is a concern. We're very much relying on Colby Bishop and Katsina Yengi to do it in the Championship, and they haven't in the past.
It's a weird one, Jerry Yates. It's weird. I mean, I look at his numbers. He's played 152 games in the Championship. He scored 31 goals. It's not a terrible return. He's a striker.
So he has done it in the Championship.
I mean,
then. What are you talking about?
He's done it in the Championship, but he did it with Rotherham for a period of time. He did it with Blackpool, if you remember. I think, he was at Blackpool, wasn't he, before that. He then got his move to Swansea. That definitely didn't work out, and now he's been loaned out to Derby.
Okay, so maybe more recently it hasn't quite worked.
I say
in
not
the
doing it. He has scored goals at this level, but he's had a lot of opportunity to do it, and under a certain style of play, it hasn't worked. And I'll be honest with you, I think the Paul Warne style of play will suit him a little bit more. I think Swansea are a little bit different. Having said that, I think I'm surprised Swansea, maybe under a new Luke Williams, who's someone that wants to get the Swansea team playing a better brand of football, might have given him a go. Clearly, that wasn't an option. He wanted to go out and play guaranteed minutes, and I think it was pretty obvious that Paul Warne, is a good convincer. I think he would have got that deal and been a big reason in getting that deal done. Hence, with also Caden Jackson too. They signed a really exciting young player from Holland as well, which again I'm not quite sure too much about. I don't think many people know too much about him. He's got a good record, or a good reputation, I should say, in Holland. He's 22, so that he's slightly lower in the age in that one. Ben Osborne as well at Derby Academy, a bit of an emotional return for him. He's 29, but he's a good player, so I'm not going to look at the age on every transfer because he's a good talent. I think, look, Joe Yates could work. I'm not blown away by it. Caden Jackson could work. We'll wait and see. But like you say, you trust Paul Warne. He's got a very, very clear recruitment strategy. He knows what he wants. He knows the profile that he wants, and he knows. I'll come back to it. He knows the age and the experience that he wants to have, sort of, I guess, through that team from top to bottom. They desperately need a goalkeeper, by the way, because they haven't got many goalkeepers in the books at all at the moment. So that could be soon. But other than that, look, they're recruiting in a way that I'd expect Derby. They're not. I'll be interested to see what Paul Warne can do in the Championship, because at Rotherham, it's been a case of been a little bit up and down. Let's be honest. And so it's a bit of a question mark.
Briefly on Oxford,
excited, as you can probably tell, really excited to be in the Championship for the first time in 25 years. I wasn't born, obviously, the last time we were in the Championship, which is an extremely exciting. I still can't, even just typing Oxford into Transfer Market and these websites and it's saying Championship is really, really weird. So, really looking forward to seeing us play in a stacked, exciting division. Recruitment wise, I think we've been busy. Jack Curry joined from Wimbledon, really like that one. Wimbledon fans, we won their Player of the Year at Wimbledon. I know it's League Two, but I think Oxford have had to do something interesting, and that is understanding what we are. And what I mean by that is we can't compete in the same markets as Leeds, Sheffield United. We can't compete in the same markets at Norwich, and probably even teams like Swansea and those sort of middle teams that are at the moment are in sort of the mid-table area on previous seasons. We've had to understand what we are, and we've had to go on, right, what can we do with our recruitment strategy? And that looks to be a case of picking up players that, players like Idris El Mazouni. He's really exciting. He's had 2 fantastic loan spells in League 2 and in League 1. I think if Ipswich hadn't have got promoted to the Championship, he would have been part of their squad. That's what Ipswich fans are saying. They got in the Premier League. I think, going from League 2 and League 1 to the Premier League is a bit of a stretch, but he's a very, very exciting player, and for the money we got him for, I think he could be one where you look back and you go, that was a really good, smart piece of business. Same with Jack Curry. Peter if you ask a Rotherham fan, they hate him. To be honest, they really don't like him. If you ask a Peterborough fan, and they adore him. Yep. So again, I'm excited by him. He's athletic, he's strong, he's a good fullback. Will Volks is good, Championship experience. You've had to bring in players, of course, that haven't played in the Championship, but also mix that with players that have played in the Championship. And Will Volks was a very, very good player, and still is, hopefully. And for Sheffield Wednesday, he was very, very highly rated. I think they probably would have wanted to keep him. I think the contract length is a reason why he's come to Oxford, a bit more security. But at 30, a good age profile for that position. And like I said, he's played in this league, and he's played well in this league too. Louis Sibley from Derby, which I know is one that you've been a little bit more excited about. I like Louis Sibley. I think he's been playing out of position for a long period of time at Derby. He wants to be playing black in the midfield. He did a great job playing as a wing-back when he was asked to, but he wants to be back in the centre, affecting games where he's best. Yep. And Oxford, I think in the formation that we play and the importance of attacking midfielders, I think he's got a great chance to do that. Jamie Cummings come back too. We signed Knightbridge from West Ham, who looks to be a goalkeeper that we're going to develop. Still work to be done. We lost Josh Murphy, and we'll speak about that.
Well, I don't know. Do we need to save that for another time now?
Maybe, but I'd still say we've got work to do. We've got wingers to bring in that we need to do shortly, because on the left-hand side, bar some academy prospects, we haven't got a left wing. On the right side, slightly better, we still need additions. So I'm not saying that with a finished article. I'm pleased with the business we've done. We've understood the position that we find ourselves in the market that we're fishing in. I think we've been intelligent. I think we've been really quite ambitious with the fees as well. We've spent very, very good money for a side of Oxford United. Still work to be done, but that's because you've nicked our bloody winger. We've
nicked your winger. I'll briefly get into Pompey chat, and then we'll have a brief manager, and then I think that's us, isn't it? But so I think there were two. John Messina was in a press conference, not a press conference. He was chatting to his players in our new suite that we've got. He perfectly outlined the mentality that he's expecting from his players, which is that you've got two choices, two very clear choices. You can either look at the Championship and go, and you've actually mentioned it there, crikey my word, these are quite... I didn't use that exact language, by the way.
No, sorry, a few bleeps in there, weren't there?
A few bleeps. He's a football man and he loves a bleep. There are some real teams in there. There are some scarily talented squads that you look at. Or the flip side of that is, you look at it as a massive opportunity. You can go, this is so fantastic that we're a part of this. We're going to grab it by the absolute proverbial, give it a good go, get in amongst it and seize the moment, because we deserve to be there. We won the league by a couple of points. We didn't win it by a country mile, but we're very much, and you boys deserve to be there as well, winning it through the playoffs. We're going to attack the Championship with absolutely everything we've got. I've been saying for a few weeks now, I said it to you downstairs over lunch, as long as Pompey's final league position starts with a 1 rather than a 2, I'll be a happy man. And we've had conversation about the lack of fees attached to deals so far. Josh Murphy's on your wall over there. Jordan Williams, Jordan Archer. Business we're led to believe is all but concluded in the free agent market, because the majority of the good free agents are gone. We know the Zach Swanson news is coming in terms of confirmation, which I think is fantastic. And I won't go into loads of detail on it, but I think the three big things of the summer for me so far have been extensions to contracts for Connor Shotlessy, Marlon Pack and Connor Ogilvie. 3 absolute cornerstones of Pompey's success last season, and 3 really important deals to tie down some of the top operators at the club. Bring Alex Robertson back, add a bit of flair, some capable understudies in the remaining part of the window. We will be good to go.
That's where we're going to end it. After
finished on a climax, didn't we?
A long show.
That's always the best way to do it.
A long show. An hour and 20 minutes on here. It'll be a bit shorter than that, but it's a long bumper Championship show. The first ever episode of Just Another Month, brought to you by the brilliant people at Wood & Grounds that you can see here, and you can see behind Tom's face at the map of Fratton Park. Get your discount code JWARD10 for 10% off.
That was fantastic, by the way.
Loved it. Enjoy this season. Give it a really good go. We'll see you in August after the first month of Championship
it's so
football.
exciting.
We could be rock bottom, both of us, with 0 points. We also could be doing all right. You won't know by the time you see this, but we'll be able to reflect on this episode in August and see how naive we were. Until next time, please, if you do enjoy it, both of us will be in the comments as well, replying and hopefully seeing some new faces. Thank you for joining us. Some existing faces, welcome back. Slightly different surroundings, new studio, new vibe, new season series as well. But I've been Jack. That's been Tom. This has been Just Another Month for the first ever edition, and we'll see you very soon. Take care.